Welcome to the Fantasy Baseball Beat, part of the Triple Play Fantasy Network. Thank you for joining us. I'm your host, Chris Torres, joined by my co-host, Carlos Marcano. Carlos, how you doing today?
One day at a time, man, in the tropical Costa Rica land, man.
How is it down there, man? We are in the actually for New York. Winter's been pretty mild. We've been pretty lucky. What's it like in down where you're at?
Oh man, I don't want to get too jealous, man, but it's around 30 nice Celsius degrees
Oh
and
my god.
just sun, no rain at all because we are in our summer. It's gorgeous. Not to make you feel bad, but it's gorgeous, man.
Hey, I'm feeling pretty bad. Feeling pretty bad, but I don't know. You got any room over there, man? Because I need a little getaway. It's like right around this time of year. I feel like I gotta I'm like cool with cold weather, winter up until like the second week in January. Once we hit that point, I'm like, all right, let's get this over with already. Cause it just, I'm thinking of baseball, of the spring, and it's like that month and a half stretch, especially because like sports is kind of dead, right?
Yeah,
Like you get the Super Bowl, but then like these next couple weeks is kind of not much going on.
yeah.
Thankfully, we're gonna get some spring training coming up here, so that'll kind of occupy us. But yeah, just trying to get through this period here, trying to get to the start of baseball season. But listen, we got an awesome guest today. We've got Curt Hogg of the Milwaukee Journal Sentinel joining us to talk all things Brewers. I'm going to bring him in right now. Curt, thank you so much for joining us. How are you?
I'm good. And it's like in the 40s here, mid 40s in Wisconsin. So
Yeah,
that makes it
okay. So
even
you guys are
like
pretty lucky too. I'd imagine that's not
it's been
normal.
mild. It feels tropical.
Yeah,
I'm,
compared
I'm not in
to
Arizona yet, but I will be in a few weeks. But this is spring enough.
yeah. How are you feeling? I asked our last guest this, but I'm always interested to hear, like, as a beat writer with spring training approaching, how are you feeling? Are you feeling excited about heading down to Arizona? Are you like, I don't know, like, are you just trying to enjoy these last few weeks here? What is this like here?
Yeah, it's a strange dynamic because this was my first real spring training. I went down for like a couple weeks last year after that was my first year on the job. So and it was kind of a fake spring in a way. So this was
Right,
my
right.
first
Thanks.
full one.
Uh,
So I've after the end of last year, I was telling people I was excited to miss baseball again, and I think we're back to that. Yeah, I think I'm ready.
okay. All right. You had enough of a break here, so you're ready to get back on the grind. Um,
Yes.
So tell us, if we like to ask our guests like a little bit about their history, like how they got into the industry, and just a little bit about their work. So if you could just tell us a little bit about yourself.
So I'm from the Milwaukee area. I went to college in Wisconsin, and then I've worked at the Journal Sentinel now for 5-6 years. I got my first job at a really small paper in small town Minnesota, where it is even colder, and it was, as a city kid, it was a much different environment. But I'm back in Milwaukee now, and yeah, I worked high school sports for the last 5 years, so that was a lot of fun and kind of a good seg segue into covering baseball. A lot of fun covering those kids around here. The basketball scene is really good. A couple other
Mhm.
sports are pretty good up here. Surprisingly, like not so much hockey.
Really?
You'd think there'd be more hockey up here, but not really.
Okay. Very. So you
Yeah,
you you did the circuit. You did the high school sports, and you paid your dues, so to speak. And now you got the Brewers job. So congrats on that. This is now your second year covering them.
that's right. Yep.
Um, okay, so yeah, you can find Curt's work over again at the Milwaukee Journal Sentinel. Definitely go check it out. He's got some really cool prospect stuff. So I was checking that out earlier. So we'll get a little bit into that and look at some of these exciting young players that the Brewers got coming up through their system here. But Carlos, start us off with asking about the outfield situation here.
Yeah, let's get into the nitty gritty, man. Help us, Curt, to find out how's that outfield playing time going to shake out, man. We're trying to see how those pieces are going to fit, and it looks like a good problem because there are many pieces, but how will they fit together? How do you think they're going to fit together?
Yeah, I mean, to start, you've got Yelich in left field, and he'll play pretty much every day as long as he's healthy. That's the big question with him, his health, and obviously the production's tailed off significantly from where he was. So I guess the other big question is it possible for him to get back to that level? But either way, he's going to play every day. And then center field's kind of the interesting picture there. You've got Garrett Mitchell, one of the team's top prospects, got a little cup of coffee in the bigs at the end of last year. Performed well in some areas, not so well in some other areas. Like he struck out a ton. Tyrone Taylor's a name that's kind of been around for a while as more of a fourth outfield type, but he's the righty in that mix. And then we can talk more about all the outfield center field prospects that they've got coming up. Sal Frelick is generally considered the team's number 2 prospect overall, like a top 50 guy in all of baseball. But it seems like Garrett Mitchell's going to get the job to start the year. We'll see how long that lasts. Frelick doesn't have a ton left to prove in AAA. So if he hits the cover off the ball down there or Mitchell struggles, it could go either way. And then Jesse Winker was probably along with William Contreras at catcher, was the big bat that they got this offseason, right?
Yeah.
It's still unclear exactly if he's going to DH a lot or play in the outfield a lot, but I think there's the Brewers certainly hope there's a lot of breakout potential in that bat, kind of getting back to what he did with the Reds.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean there's just a lot of pieces here, like Carlos mentioned, and there's just a lot of different ways it could shake out. You didn't sound particularly confident on Garrett Mitchell. You mentioned his swing and miss, and you were kind of like, well, I guess he's going to start the year in center field. So if you had to, I don't know if you're a gambling man, but if you had to put a bet down, who do you think by July is going to be manning that center field position for them?
Yeah, that's I want to say Mitchell because I think he's going to start the year as the main center fielder.
Okay.
But I would bet on Sal Frelick's profile playing well. The thing with Mitchell is he's probably the better defender, and that sort of gives him a nice little floor there, and he's really fast as well. But Frelick's contact is off the charts. I think he struck out like 10% of the time or something at AAA, just some absurd number. And there's a little bit of power in there too. So if I had to bet, I'd go with Frelick, which is tough to say because he's not on the 40-man right now.
Right.
There's 2 guys ahead of him probably on the depth chart, but I would place a bet on that bat.
Okay. All right. Yeah, Carlos, I don't know. I'm not a huge prospect guy, so maybe I'm, speaking out of turn here, but he almost reminds me of like this year's potentially Stephen Kwan, a guy who just like makes contact, and I could envision a scenario where this guy shows up and just balls out in spring training, and just like they can't get him out, and he finds his way onto the club. That does concern me a little bit, though, that he's not on the 40-man, and not the be all end all, but he's got some hurdles to jump over. But yeah, it's going to be super interesting to see how it plays out. Tyrone Taylor, are you thinking that he is more of like a fourth outfielder type, or do you think one of these other young guys by the midseason is going to kind of stake more of an everyday claim there?
Yeah, Tyrone Taylor. I like Tyrone Taylor as a player a lot. I just don't know if we've seen enough of him to kind of say that, okay, they would probably prefer to have one of these other young guys step up and take the job. And then the offense is just better off, and the team's better off when Taylor's a fourth outfielder, which is a role that's where he's better fit than being the everyday center fielder. Joey Wiemer is the other interesting name. There's a little more refinement in his game compared to Frelick, who's the contact heavy guy, whereas Joey Wiemer is going to swing and miss a lot, but he's also going to hit the ball really far a lot. He's the upside guy, I think, out of that the Mitchell Wiemer Frelick group, which is all at AAA last year or at the end of last year. So he's also not on the 40-man. That does seem to be sort of an important note to add with the Brewers. They historically have as a lot of teams do, but especially the Brewers do it. They do put some weight on, who's on the 40-man and try to maximize what they can get out of their entire roster. And so he's probably the farthest away, but he also tore the cover off the ball at AAA. So if he does the same for the first 2 months, who's to say he doesn't come up? Although he's right, he's a right fielder. He's a really good and athletic right fielder, but he's not playing center like the other guys would.
Okay. All right. So thanks for going into that with us. You mentioned all of these guys, Frelick, Weimer. You didn't mention Jackson Churio. These are kind of their prize prospects. So, we've got some people who are really into dynasty leagues, and have been following these guys for years. But want to get your take also because I know that you wrote some of them up recently for Prospects Week. Who out of those players are you most bullish on long term?
I mean, I think the answer is Churio. Like all the people in the industry that you really trust, both within the organization and outside. Like there's a reason this dude is ranked in the top 10, pretty much consensus at age 18. He'll be 19 this year. So there's reason the answer there would be Churio. But if I had to go off of that and give another one, so this is a guy I've actually been trying to trade for. I play one league, but it's more than enough commitment in his dynasty. Been trying to get Joey Weimer off of my buddy. The problem is I wrote about Joey Weimer, and I wrote about why I think he the plate discipline strides he made might be
real. Your intentions.
And so now I write about it, and then I'm like, Joey Weimer, is he available? And then it's like it's not happening for me. So I think he's got 70 grade speed. He's really fast. He'll steal 20 bases in the big leagues. And the fantasy profile is super intriguing there as well. And he's kind of ranked on the outskirts of the top 100 in a lot of areas, and could be, he's the guy that I think could shoot up. It could all backfire if he strikes out a ton, but the upside's there.
Sounds like there's a lot of tools there in that fantasy friendly profile. We're all looking for that power speed combo. So definitely some potential there. You mentioned Jesse Winker, Carlos. You want to get into that with Curt?
Yeah. And listening Curt talking about all these young dudes and all the flexibility that Milwaukee already had, it makes me wonder what's Jesse Winker doing around, And I guess I'm not the only one, because he looks like a reclamation project that you don't know how far and well it's going to go, And do you think there's a plan to fix Jesse Winker, or just playing it by ear?
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see, because they gave up Colton Wong, who was one of their better hitters last year for him, and the expectation there is that Jesse Winker will play regularly, especially against righties every day. Maybe get some time in right field, but a primary DH. And the Brewers got him to be the guy that he was in Cincinnati. I think there's some reason, there's some reason to believe that he can be that guy again. And last year was sort of the aberration, but there was definitely enough struggles in Seattle last year, I think both on and off the field, with some injury stuff as well, that there's questions. But no doubt, if opening day was tomorrow, I think he'd be hitting cleanup or hitting fifth or he'd be in the middle of the order at DH for this team. And they need some thump. Rowdy Tellez has a little bit, and the guy that was in right field, Hunter Renfroe, had some, but he's gone. That's what this offense needs, and that's what they need from him. And so I think they're going to give him a lot of chances to be that guy,
to prove himself, right? Yeah, roster resource has him at fifth, just behind Contreras. So that's there's an indication there. But now moving to the other side of the spectrum, we have Brice Turang, a young fellow second baseman, and there's a lot of people interested in him. And the problem with prospects and guys that are just up and coming is playing time, and especially for us degenerate fantasy players. That's part of our.
Speak for yourself, Carlos.
Yeah, come on. We'll talk
No, I'm
about
worse
that
than
later.
you. I'm worse than you.
So, what do you think are the odds that Turang plays 400, has 400 plate appearances in with the big team?
I take the under on that number. Maybe a month or two ago, I would have taken the over. It looked like he might be the starter, but then they've bolstered the depth there for sure. And then signing Brian Anderson to play a lot of third base kind of slides Luis Urias over to second. And obviously with Willie Adames at short, that makes it a tough spot for Turang. I don't think he's going to start the year on the opening day roster. He is on the 40-man, which is he was Rule 5 eligible, so that's to his benefit. But they've also got Abraham Toro. They traded for Owen Miller, a local kid who can kind of play everywhere as well. Mike Brasso at third base will play against lefties pretty regularly, although I guess that doesn't really overlap with what Turang does, but it is an active roster spot. So there's just some hurdles there to clear for Turang, a guy who hasn't played in the bigs yet. So I would take the under on that.
Who do you think gets more plate appearances, him or Brian Anderson?
Turang or Brian Anderson?
Yeah.
I think Brian Anderson.
Yeah.
I think, yeah. Because he can also play right. And if Winker is, not, he really struggled in the outfield last year, and he's also not completely, 100% healthy. I don't know if they want to throw him out there in the field that often. They don't have a lot of right fielders. It's like Tyrone Taylor and Anderson. So, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. An interesting guy. I mean, he was someone kind of flying under the radar in terms of fantasy because he was a free agent and nobody was excited about Brian Anderson. But I see his ADP creeping up now that he's signed, and he could really he's going to like 400 somewhere. Carlos, he could be a pretty decent value for a guy sounds like he's going to get some good run at a few different positions.
I've always liked Anderson in the past, but the problem is that he can stay healthy, man, and that's a big problem. He has a lot of talent. He can play almost everywhere from third or outfield. He's a really good baseball player, but he just can keep it together and play on the field as constant as we would like.
Yep. Yeah, and speaking about health, I mean, let's transition to the starting rotation here. So we know that the Brewers got some studs up top. They have Woodruff, they have Burns, they have Peralta. So we'll go back to Peralta in a second, but before we go there, who fills these other two spots in the rotation? I mean, is Wade Miley really going to be part of the starting five here?
Wade Miley is really going to be part of the starting five. A lot of ground balls if you're into that sort of thing. Eric Lauer's a lock for number 4, assuming he's healthy. There was some whispers that the Brewers might shop him this offseason, but I don't really think there was ever a whole lot to that. They got hammered by not having pitching depth last year, so I don't think even though they could trade from their depth, they didn't really have a super large desire to do so. So Lauer is the 4, and then Aaron Ashby is kind of the name, the wild card here. I'm super high on his stuff and his potential, but he's going to miss the start of the year. He's had some shoulder injuries going back to last year, and we don't really know what the timetable is there. So that's why they signed Wade Miley. Is
he's like a placeholder.
Yeah,
for
and then there's Adrian Hauser as well, but he really struggled last year and might be better in a bullpen role / as the 6th starter. So yeah, it's Wade Miley at the back end.
Wade Miley, my man, you just won't go away. But I want to ask you about Peralta because we were talking about health, and he's a guy that we know he's a great pitcher, but obviously last year he struggled with health, and people are a little bit down on him this year. I mean, last year he was going in the top 50, if I'm not mistaken, and now he's going like 100 picks later. So do you think that the Brewers are going to do anything like put any restrictions in place or kind of watch his innings as a way to keep him healthy? Do you have you caught any wind of any plans to, keep him on the field?
The thing to note is they're being super cautious with him right now in hopes of being able to get the most out of him. He could have pitched in the WBC for the Dominican, But I think that the team sort of was looking at that and saying, maybe not. Their other pitchers had full freedom to do so, but like Woodruff and Burns just opted to do a regular spring training. Freddie was really vocal about wanting to pitch in the WBC, but is not doing so. And I think it makes a lot of sense. He, like you said, couldn't stay healthy last year. He had a couple of different issues, and even when he was healthy, like there was a game where he got pulled, I think after 6 no-hit innings, and it was all of a sudden like, wait, he's still got like there's a lot of fatigue concerns with his arm right now that people didn't really know about. So yeah, I do think there's reason to be cautious. Like that delivery is pretty high effort. He's a good athlete, but it's a lot of strain on not a really big frame. And he hasn't put together a full season in the big leagues as a starter yet. But if he's healthy, him going at that spot of draft, that'd be a steal. We've seen his stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's a dilemma, right? He's kind of going in a range. There's like several guys kind of like a Dustin May. He's kind of going around there and kind of a similar archetype of player, you know.
But you know what? I know you like Dustin May, Chris, but I would take Peralta instead of May.
Okay.
I think the probability of May breaking before Peralta is higher.
Really? Okay. All right. Well, we'll maybe have to table that for another episode. We have a little debate on that one. But okay, so a few more guys I wanted to cover, and going to go a little bit off script here, but going to ask you a few questions for selfish reasons because these are some guys that have taken in some drafts lately. Curt, tell me something positive about Willy Adames because I'm taking him everywhere. I love him this year, so make me feel good. Validate that for me.
I will gladly do that. Willy Adames, can you get points for shortstop range? Because the real life Willy Adames is like a fantastic shortstop defensively, and I don't think he gets enough credit for that. Really, like the whole package makes him certainly a top 8 shortstop in baseball right now. But yeah, I mean, you're probably going to get 30 bombs. He's been pretty durable. You get 30 bombs from your shortstop position. That's important. I don't know if he's going to be super high OBP, but higher than it was last year when he was like around 300. So yeah, I think Willy Adames is the best position player on this team by a pretty good margin. So I'll talk up your Willy Adames pick.
All right. I love it. I love it. You're making me feel good. Yeah, because I almost feel like in fantasy, and you tell me if I'm wrong, Carlos, but I feel like not a lot of people talk about him. Like he's almost like boring at this point. Like he kind of broke out already, but he's 27 years old, you know, like he's right, like in that prime year, that prime age. And guy, he had 30 bombs last year. He's not a 0 in stolen bases. Who knows? Maybe he even takes advantage of the new rules here. Not going to kill you in average, hitting in the number 2 hole every day. Man, I think he's just like a great pick where he's going. Also,
I think he's a better pick than Dansby Swanson. That's a lot to say because Swanson got this huge contract, but I believe Adames is way more valuable for fantasy and for regular real life baseball. You know.
And he's usually going after Swanson. In drafts,
10 picks, 14 picks later.
Yeah. I'll take Adames every time. What about Christian Yelich? I mean,
what about him?
It's been frustrating. Every year we're kind of, I don't know. I don't want to say we because some people are smarter than me and are just giving up hope already on this. But like, I keep thinking he's going to go back to that, or at least some semblance of that 2019 form when he won MVP. Because, you know, the max exit velo looks good. Like the contact quality looks good, but that ground ball percentage every year, it's like going up and up. I mean, what are your thoughts on that, Curt? Do you think, like, is there any chance at this point that he makes that adjustment again and even brings it up to like sub 50%? What's going on there?
Yeah, that's the question that the Brewers are trying to figure out. What is going on there? And you're right, like legitimately, I hate to oversimplify it, but if he just hits more fly balls, he's going to look maybe not like 2018, 2019 Christian Yelich, but he's going to look a lot closer to it. Like you mentioned that he's hitting the ball really hard all the time.
Yeah.
I think actually every fly ball that he pulled last year was a home run, which means there weren't many.
Yeah.
But it shows you when he's hitting it to right and elevating. Like he had a 500-foot homer at Coors. Guys just
I remember that.
don't.
Yeah.
They know it's Coors, but like guys don't do that.
Yeah.
So there's still those glimpses of like that's Christian Yelich that leave people hanging, and you want to cling on to it. I don't know how. I don't know if the swing can go back to what it was. I'm not a hitting guru. It feels like something that you could maybe not drastically turn it around, but at least get more fly balls with the way he hits it. So I don't know what to expect. I've gone on our podcast of the Journal Settle and said, like, I think he's going to have a really good year. Like he could maybe be an all-star for, I think he very well could be an all-star this year.
Mm-hmm.
But, that ground ball rate, I feel like pretty early in the year we'll have a good indication. And if he's hitting the ball in the air more, that's an opportunity to buy, even if the results aren't showing right away.
And I'll say this just real quickly, Carlos, you tell me what you think about what I'm about to say, but I think spring training is kind of important, like to look for those types of things, right?
Yep.
The two things that I'm looking for, I'm not looking at someone's average or whatever, their RBIs, but sometimes when players, and maybe I'm not saying it's going to be Yelich, but just I'm talking in general, when a player is hitting more fly balls in spring training or their strikeout rate is lower, I've seen that has some signal there.
Yep.
Do you agree, Carlos, or do you just kind of throw spring training out?
No, I think, well, you have to take it with a grain of salt, but there are indications, and you said things like that, some plate discipline stuff that you can see in those early numbers. They might reflect that they're working in on something that they need to change.
Yeah.
But I'm sorry, I'm gonna break your heart, Chris, again, but I don't think Yelich is coming back, man.
No, all right.
The
I'm gonna
thing
go
is,
down the ship again, huh?
the thing is that I think that the fluke were those 19 and 18 years. He was always
Right.
a 60% ground ball rate batter. 2013 63, 14 61, 15 62. He was never lower than 55 until those breakout years, and then he went back to his original things. I hope I'm wrong because I love the guy, and I got some very cheap shares, so I'm betting against my own analysis, but I would be a little bit skeptical.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. Well, we'll talk a little bit more about his ADP and discuss whether it's worth it from a fantasy perspective to invest in Yelich this year. But we are coming to a close on our time with you, Curt. But we like to end our interviews with kind of some fun questions and just learning maybe a little bit more about some things that you've experienced during your time covering the team. So these are kind of just like rapid fire quick questions, but first one for me is, have you ever gone down the big slide at is it called American Family Field? I don't know.
It is no
It
longer
is okay. The Bernie Brewer slide.
Yeah.
Have you ever gone down?
The answer is no, I have not.
Do you want to?
I do want to. Although, so the story here is I was slated to go. One of the team people was going to bring me up there. You got to sign waivers, permission, that whole thing. Get someone to take you up there. But then the Dodgers TV reporter, I don't know if you guys saw this or remember it, he like fractured his collarbone or shoulder or something going down the slide, and there's a padded wall that you slide into, and whatever he did it wrong, and he injured himself. And had to go like to the hospital in Milwaukee, and then he was doing sideline reports in a sling.
Get out of
And so
here.
the Brewers were like, I think we're gonna stop letting people do this this year. We don't need
This was last year this happened?
This was last year, yeah, while the Dodgers were in town. Yeah.
Wow.
There was an injury on the slide. So
oh my God.
My trip down the slide got axed.
Okay, but you're still but when they reopen it, you're still planning to do it. You're not scared.
Please don't break anything.
Oh, I'm scared. There's like that really hard left turn, or I guess it's a right turn that you take. Like you watch Bernie slide down that thing, it's safe, right? But like he's hanging over the edge just a little bit. So
Yeah.
I'm absolutely petrified, but I have to do it.
Yeah, I mean, you can't be the beat writer for the Brewers and not have gone down. I mean, it looks fun. I see, like, you can even, like, just a regular anybody can. I don't know about now since this guy got injured, but I saw on the website, like, you can sign up to go, right? Just like fans.
I'm not sure. I do not know.
Okay, I thought I saw that. But
yeah.
Okay.
I know.
It's
All right, well, keep us posted. Take video. We'd love to have you back on and hear about your experience down the slide. We'd also love to see you. We know that Milwaukee is also famous for the sausage race. So my next question to you is, I'd like you to give me your projected order of finish in a hypothetical sausage race. All right. So here are the contestants: you, Rowdy Tellez, CC Sabathia, and former Milwaukee Brewer great Jeff Jenkins, who I believe has participated in this before. I don't know if he won.
The Jeff Jenkins inclusion. It's like I can see where you're going with it, with the other guys, and then Jeff Jenkins. Oh
yeah, man.
I
don't know. Yeah. I just love naming like random 90s people.
Yeah,
it just makes me happy. So what would be the order of finish, and which sausage would you choose?
Well, I would choose, first off, I would choose either the Polish or the hot dog. You don't want to be chorizo. It's not the hat, the sombrero. It's not good for aerodynamics, for sure.
So you've been scouting this out. You've got your eye on this.
I haven't run it, but another thing I'm trying to gather up enough reporters to do it one game this year, and a couple of them haven't. So that's their tip. So.
No chorizo. All right, where do you think you'd finish out of those four?
Well, I would beat Rowdy. I'm like,
really,
and I will tell him that I said this too. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
When I see him in spring training, I'll let him know that I would beat him in this race. I feel like CC slimmed down. I feel like he has. I feel like he could torch me. Yeah, CC could torch me for sure. Jeff Jenkins got to be like 50.
He got to be in his 50s. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, but his experience in the race, I think, would give him a little bit of an advantage.
Yeah,
he knows the right path. So
that's it's tricky. If you give me a couple months to train for it, like right now, I'd probably actually lose. Right. But when I get the sausage race date circled on my calendar, I will be at the gym on the treadmill doing sprints.
You're not going to embarrass yourself. You're going to go out there and put in a good effort.
You did your spring training before.
Yeah.
To get ready for that.
I think I instead of running against pro athletes, though, I'd much rather run against the other reporters from Milwaukee.
That's okay.
I like my chances a little better against the press box wags.
That's so cool. So Curt, keeping on the light side, who has been your favorite player to cover on your time with the team?
It's only been the 1 year, but he was not, when he was non-tendered this year. Brent Suter. It was like a lot of fans were disappointed, and I think all the media were as well. The local media. Brent Suter, just the nicest guy, just a good dude. Great guy in the clubhouse, for both the media and teammates. Super genuine, really funny. So Brent Suter's probably the guy. Willie Adames is also another awesome guy that comes to mind. We gave Brandon, the Milwaukee media chapter gave Brandon Woodruff our media good guy award for helpfulness. So he's always a great quote and super willing as well. But yeah. It's Suter. It's definitely the Raptor. Yeah.
Suter is also famous because he butchered like 100 wins in one of the past seasons, something like that. So he was a waiver wire popular pickup in a lot of leagues. So he had like 12 in 2021, 12 wins.
Yeah,
they'll always have a place in our hearts for sure.
They had the Brewers in the clubhouse. They had a little vulture that they would hang
Oh,
on his
really?
he hates the name, but
I guess
they were
yeah.
well aware that he would take the wins.
That's good.
Do you have this is a fun one. Who has the best beer cheese soup in town?
And of
Oh,
course, Mike Carter. That was one he came up with. Of course, that's what he's focused on.
best beer cheese soup in town. I've had a really good beer cheese soup at the Milwaukee Brat House, which is like that's a very Wisconsin name for a restaurant, right? The Brat
Yeah.
House. So I will go with that. It's near the Bucks Arena downtown, so a good spot to get a brat or some soup or a beer before a game. Yeah.
You hear it, guys. Make sure to get your soup over there when you're in town.
All right. Well, Curt, we are at the end of our time, but it's been an absolute pleasure having you on. If you could just take a few seconds here to tell our listeners where they could find you on Twitter, where they could find your work. You also mentioned you had a podcast, which I wasn't aware of. So if you could plug that as well.
Yeah, I'm on Twitter as all us degenerates are. I'm at Curt Hogg, CYRTHOGG, Y instead of the U. My actual name is unavailable as a handle, so I'm trying to get that back, but it ain't working. And then we've got for more Brewers news, we've got our own Journal Sentinel Brewers podcast. We call it the Micro Brew podcast.
Nice name. Okay.
So yeah, we're on that as well. So yeah, thanks for having me on. A lot of fun. I'm excited to get going here.
All right. Well, best of luck this season. I hope you enjoy your last couple of weeks here before you head down. But again, thank you so much. And we are going to take a quick break. All right, Curt, thank you so much. Really appreciate you coming on.
Awesome.
Thanks a lot, Curt.
We'd love to have you back on at some point during the season.
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay.
Have a lot of fun in spring training.
Yeah, it'll be nice. I'll head down in a couple
Enjoy that Arizona weather.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Take care.
Bye. He was very cool. Very nice guy.
Oh, super cool. Super fresh,
Yeah. A good sense of humor. So that's always good. All right. I'm going to take. Did you hear from Mike? I didn't even check.
Oh, I haven't checked. Maybe. So it's been 15 minutes. He will probably be arriving home.
Okay. Let's give it 5-10 minutes. I just want to check on my daughter and
yeah. Well, I'll text him and
Okay.
see. If, okay.
All right.
No worries. Take your time.
All right.
All
Doing
good?
a little bit better. She was like, so uh I never want like cake in this house again, man. Like when kids have too much sugar, it's just bedtime just becomes a freaking disaster.
Yeah.
Oh my god. All right. Well, looks like she's finally getting into bed.
That's good. That's
Yeah.
good.
But did you hear from Mike or no?
I just text him, but he hasn't. Let me see. Give me 1 second. No, he got the message, but hasn't replied back. I guess he might be driving. Maybe.
Yeah, probably. Okay.
Maybe we can
All
give
right,
him.
let's just roll with it. I honestly don't have too much in me tonight, so we'll just do kind of a quick follow up.
Okay.
And we'll just do the best we can. I put it at the bottom of the outline, just the agenda for this segment.
Yeah, I just saw it. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, and you're gonna do the Rowdy Telez. You're gonna do the breakdown for him.
Yeah, just a short breakdown. A couple of things. I already wrote an analysis for him for baseball prospectus, so I already have it
Oh,
like
okay.
scripted, and
Okay, nice. Cool.
I should not ramble.
All righty. All right, let's do it, man. Take note of we're at what 42:15. So okay. Good.
Yep, go for it.
All right. Welcome back. We are here for our fantasy follow-up segment. I'm here again, joined by Carlos Marcano. Carlos, we're going to talk a little bit about these Brewers at ADP. So let's start out by you identifying who is one player going in the top 150 who you're most interested in at their current cost. And we're using NFBC ADP data.
Yeah. As much as I hate getting pitching in the first rounds, Brandon Woodruff is just too tempting to let him pass. He's almost at the corner of the end of the second, beginning of third round. He's a legitimate ace and SP1 for any fantasy team that can be a contender. And at that price, I think, I mean, it's really, there's very little that I could add that what he's capable of doing, right? He's just proven himself to be a great pitcher, but I think that the relationship between value and the ADP that he's having right now doesn't make justice to how good he is. This is a guy that he can give you 180 innings. He strikes more than one player per inning. He almost had a sub 3 ERA last season, and he's done it in 2021. He was 2.56. He's almost a sub 1 whip pitcher. I mean, there's just too much to like at that price. There, depending on where you're picking, you could even try to get two big bats at the beginning and then get Woodruff at the beginning of the third round if you're lucky. You should have
Were you watching me today? Because that's the exact scenario that I had.
a.
I'm feeling a little creeped out. I just finished the third round of a DC. It was a beat Eric Cross DC.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so I was excited to get in on that. But yeah, I took Kyle Tucker. I had the 5 pick. So I took Kyle Tucker. I was going to take Julio, but I already had Julio in another league, and I kind of wanted to diversify there.
Right.
So I ended up taking Tucker in the first. In the second round, I took Goldschmidt was there. And then the third round, the scenario that I had was was Woodruff, and the other two pitchers I was looking at were Nola and Rodon. And again, I already had Nola and Rodon on other teams, so I didn't have any Woodruff. So that's ultimately why I ended up going with
Beautiful.
him, just to get
Beautiful.
some exposure there. But would
Can I
you?
bet on you to win that league?
Yeah. All right, we'll set up a side pot. So it sounds like you would take Woodruff over those two other guys, over Nola and Rodon, straight up.
I'd probably decide between Nola and Hin. I think they are both interchangeable in that scenario. To be
Okay,
fair,
that's kind of
because
how I felt. I
yeah,
felt they're kind of the same.
yeah,
It's kind of just a flip of a coin to as far as who's going to be better this year.
yeah.
So I figure I'll just grab him there, and it may be my only share, of him. But yeah, I like him. It's just I don't know. I'm just being kind of nitpicky because I feel like Nola maybe is just a little bit of a safer bet for volume. Like even if you look in the Baseball HQ forecaster, they've got Woodruff. They give out health grades on a
Mm-hmm.
A to F scale,
Mm-hmm.
and I feel like Woodruff just kind of has like these little things, and maybe it's just bad luck. I know there's a whole, we could talk for forever about the injury prone debate, but
Yeah.
there's just like a little something there that I'm not quite as confident as I am in like an Aaron Nola. But again, maybe I'm just overblowing. I mean, the guy he's an excellent pitcher. Past 3 years, he's had a 25% K minus walk percentage. There's really not too much to complain about there. So I'm on board, Carlos. I think as an SP1, I think he's a fun guy to anchor your rotation. So for you,
Totally.
that's who you're most interested in the top
Yeah,
150.
definitely.
Okay.
Definitely.
I already talked
What's your
about I talked about Willie Adames. He's my guy. I absolutely love him for all the reasons I mentioned before. I just again feel like he's being undervalued. Even if you put him into one of these like SGP projection, like an auction calculator, he comes out as a value based on his ADP, which is just so everybody is aware, he is going at pick 94 over the past few weeks here. So
nice?
yeah, I just think he's the power that he gives you. I think he's a decent bet to lead shortstops and home runs. And he's not a zero in steals. So definitely love him where he's going. One guy we didn't talk about with Curt, but I wanted to get your opinion on is the new Brewer, the new catcher for them, William Contreras. Tell me a little bit. Are you interested in him? Going at pick 120 right now. He's going in like that third tier of catchers. Tell me, is he someone that you are interested in at that price?
Uh, in every two catchers league that I'm drafting, I'm trying to get him
Okay.
because he provides a really good value being in that third tier of catchers. I mean, he has power. He has improved it a little bit. He was kind of a happy trigger for some time, but he's gotten better in his that swing rate. And he's gonna bat in the middle of a great lineup. You cannot well
I don't
we
know. I don't know if it's great, but
yeah,
yeah, no,
yeah.
it's good.
Exactly.
Yeah,
And whenever you're batting fourth, you get the chances at least.
absolutely. Yeah. No, I
you know,
agree.
I'll backpedal a little bit there, but
You caught
but
yourself there.
yeah.
Yeah, I saw that.
So I mean, he's can tear the cover off the balls every time he hits it. So I think Milwaukee did a great bet going for the younger Contreras, and we might see a 30 homers season from him. That's not really out of the question. If he gets enough at bats with he should, because Victor Caratini is not gonna take his place anytime soon. It's just for maintenance and things like that. So I think he's a great bet.
Mhm. I'm totally with you, man. I mean, he's not that different than his brother, right? I mean, two dudes who smash the ball.
Yeah.
Both of them have a little bit of a ground ball lean, which limits or caps their upside slightly, but the raw power is just so good that,
Yeah.
he can get you, like you said, 30 home runs. So Wilson, I think, is going maybe a round or two before him. So I'm targeting one of them. I want, talking more general catcher strategy, like I want good catchers. And I know this has been talked about on other podcasts. So I'm not going to get too far into the weeds here, but
Yeah.
in two catcher leagues, even in one catcher leagues, like there is a huge drop off. You want at least one of your catchers in a two catcher league to be, not most of them are not going to be everyday players unless you're getting like a Varsho or Melendez.
Right.
But someone who's going to play the majority of the games and and be a positive in some area. So these guys, both Contrerases, I mean, they're gonna help you pretty much everywhere. Average may be a little bit shaky. I know Wilson is kind of bounced up and down. Obviously, they're not going to give you much speed, but I want one of those guys. I'm totally with you. The power is just too good. And man, like I was in a draft not too long ago where I took Cal Raleigh, and after that, looking at the catchers that were available, like it falls off a cliff.
You're gonna end
So
up with Martin
you got to have a
Maldonado.
plan. What's that?
You might end up with Martin Maldonado.
Yeah. Actually, I ended up taking him in like the 44th round as my third catcher, which I felt gross. But yeah, you can't get stuck with these guys that are going to be in a 50-50 timeshare, and when they do play, you don't even know if how good they're going to be.
Yeah.
You're really falling behind if you don't have at least one solid catcher.
Totally.
In a one catcher league, I guess maybe you could get away with it, but still, even in that, I want one of these like top 10 guys.
Yep.
So,
That's
yeah,
right.
I'm totally with you on William Contreras. Okay, so let's go a little deeper and let's look at players going past pick 300, some guys that you identify as some quote unquote sleepers that you would be interested in at their price.
Well, I'm gonna give you a 500 plus guy, and it's. I know a lot of people are gonna start rolling their eyes when they hear his name, but it's Keston here.
Justin Hira. All right,
Yeah.
tell me, what do you like about him?
Okay, we know he can hit the ball hard. We know that he has these streaks of brilliance once in a while. But what might be a little bit under the radar is that he started doing more contact. I'm not even gonna go as deep as great contact or bad contact. He was making contact, and if you look at his rolling graph for the contact percentage for last season, there is a steady ramp. Really, I mean, not that. How do you say inclined? Inclined is that?
Mhm.
But a steady increment in his contact percentage, and at the end of the day, I think that's what where the matter is going to be with him. If he can make contact with the ball. Keston Hura is a guy that I don't know if you are familiar with the dynamic hard hit rate, which
Mhm.
is it's kind of a way of getting it, just not using that fixed 95 miles per hour threshold. He has the same dynamic hard hit rate as Kyle Schwarber, for example.
Mhm.
He's on the same level as Byron Buxton, on the same level as Joey Gallo. The problem is that he also strikes out as Joey Gallo.
Like
So
Joey Gallo, yeah.
so that's the problem. But this is the kind of guy, and I love these guys that can hit the ball as hard as that, because every single minor improvement in contact will translate in a lot of gone balls. And if they can do it just a couple of steps, they can give you a big surprise. So, I mean, he's practically free, And if you're doing a 50 rounds uh, um, draft and hold, you can do a lot worse than taking Keston here right in with your last picks. So I would give it a shot.
I mean, the thing with him though is obviously there's the concerns with the strikeout rate, but like, where does he play at this point?
Yeah,
Like they've got Luis Urias, who's kind of he can bounce around. He can go to second, he can go to third. They've got Brian Anderson. Rowdy's going to hold down first. Even they've got Mike Brousseau, who can play. He can be the short side platoon guy at first or third. I just don't know. Like I don't
yeah,
really
but they
see.
also have Jency Winkerman, Jency Winker, and we don't know if that's going to work.
Yeah. So you
So
think maybe like if that doesn't work out, some DH time for him?
it's better. How they say the better with the old known than the good, the newer good one to
Yeah,
miss.
something like that. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. All right. So Keston here, that's your guy going.
What's
Your
yours?
your your deep sleeper. Um, I don't know who who is my guy. I mean, I don't really see anybody jumping out here that's too interesting. I mean, Wade Miley is in the rotation. He's going at pick 530. Even still, not a chance in hell. Um, I want to be interested in Sal Frelick. He's going at pick 465. But the fact, and this may be really silly, but the fact that he's not on the 40 man, and like we talked about with Curt, like I
Yeah.
feel like there's some hurdles there for him to overcome. I just don't know. I know it's late, but in a DC, there's still some pretty good players going at that
Yeah, they're
range.
right.
So I'll give you, this is not past pick 500, but Brian Anderson, we talked about it.
Oh, that's a good
Um,
one.
yeah,
Yeah.
at pick 434 over the
Yeah.
past few weeks here. So this is since he signed. Um, he's not going to go, I don't think, that much higher. We kind of get something that happens with players like when they're free agents, their old ADP kind of serves as an anchor, right? So like, I don't
Right.
think he was going so late before that I don't know how much higher he's going to go than like this 400 range. But I think he's fine. I think he's going to get close to full time at bats. He's got two positions and a DC. Obviously, that's a nice thing to have.
Yeah.
And he's got some decent pop, going to a better ballpark, gives you a little bit of speed, average that won't kill you. So, yeah, that's my guy.
That's a good one. I like it.
Yeah, thank you.
Mhm.
Um, so I wanted to transition to your breakdown, Carlos. I always enjoy these. You wrote up Rowdy Tellez for Baseball Prospectus. So, um, tell me, what did you find on Rowdy, and where are you at on him this year?
So Roddy is such an interesting guy because one, he's been valued at really, really nice ADP. He's 160. So that's 10th round, 11th round territory, right?
Hmm.
And among the first basemen that can do whatever what I think he can do. That is a great opportunity to get a good value out of him. We're talking about he's going after first basemen like Nate Lowe, Rhys Hoskin, Ryan Mountcastle, and he's going before Ty France and Josh Bell. So I think he's at this moment he's pretty well valued. And why is that? Well, homers, right? We know that Rowdy can just put a lot of balls out of the park. He where he's coming from his best ever season with 35 homers. He was just the third best first baseman in homers last season. He was top 10 in runs batted in, and he was one of the cornerstones of the Brewers' offense, right? He's again batting in a privileged position in third in that lineup, just ahead of Contreras and behind Adames. And the thing is that we know that he can hit the ball extremely hard, but he actually notched an extra gear in that. So what he does best, he's doing it even better. He gained exit velocity from first to second half last season. He's entering his prime age 27 season, and he is among. And another very important thing is that he was one of the guys that got more shifted before, and now with the ban of the shift,
Mhm.
we I'm pretty sure that that will help increase a little bit more his batting average, which has been like his biggest flaw. He's at 215, I think, batting average guy. If he can get a couple of points there and puts himself in 230, that's almost 10% increase there that can provide even more helpful. So if you're looking for a good option, and if you didn't target, the big bats at the beginning, like Alonso, Abreu, or even my new favorite, Vinny Pasquantino, Rody Taylorless is just one heck of a choice that you can make in later rounds.
All right. There it is. A breakdown on Rowdy Tellez. I will throw one thing at you, though. He's probably, I mean, it's been well documented. Many people have talked about. He's not going to play against lefties, most likely, right? And they have options on the roster with, like I mentioned, Brousseau or even Brian Anderson. So, or Hira. Um, does that dissuade you at all from taking him
No, no.
at that price? No.
I'm of the position that bats speak for themselves, man. When
Okay.
they start putting that ball out of the park, it's gonna be a hard decision to keep him. They'll squeeze him as much as possible.
Okay. All right. So, do you know what his real name is?
Oh my God! Now you got me out of balance there. No, I have no idea.
I thought you did a deep dive on him.
No,
No,
not
I was
that
just
deep,
playing.
man.
Yeah, not that deep. No, I go deep, man. Like you're looking at analytics and barrel percentage.
That's it.
I'm looking at their upbringing. Like I think we got to incorporate everything. I'm trying to find their family on Twitter. Um,
That's
but
just talking, man.
yeah, no, you gotta be committed to this if you're really gonna be an NFBC or a fantasy baseball champion. But his real name is Ryan John. Can
Oh
you
my
believe that?
God! No, not at all.
Let me ask you this. If his name was Ryan John, it wasn't Rowdy, do you think he'd be going a little bit later in drafts?
Oh, for
Like, how
sure.
much does Rowdy, just the name, bump him up?
Oh, like a couple of rounds at least, man.
I think so. I'd say, let me be conservative. I would say 10 picks. It gives them 10 picks. Forget
No.
projections, like just the name. Like everybody wants Rowdy, right? So apparently the story is that his let's see, he was very active in the womb. And his mom ended up calling him Baby Rowdy,
Oh my God,
and
that's
it
so
stuck.
cool.
And that's just how, he's actually Mexican and Jewish, which is really just such an interesting combination.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's some fun facts about Ryan John Tellez. That's how I'm going to
Oh
refer to him from
my
now
God,
on.
no one's gonna know who you're talking about.
Yeah. All right.
That's so cool.
Anything else, Carlos, before we wrap up our Brewers episode? Anybody anything regarding this team that you wanted to put out there for our listeners?
Well, actually, I would like to just go a little bit of script, and I would like to thank the guys at the On the Wire podcast, uh, because they had in their last episode, they had really nice words for us, and I just wanted to tell them that we appreciate all everything that they said about, and that they are truly an inspiration. They have more than 100 episodes already,
Yep.
and they are just amazing analysts. So they're part of the gold standard in podcasting. So it's really, really nice to hear whatever they had to say about us, and I wanted to just to shout them back and let them know that they're part of the inspiration that from where we want to for what we want to achieve.
Absolutely. Yeah. I that's one of my favorite podcasts. I was
Adam
so
and
thrilled.
Kevin are amazing.
Yeah, Kevin and Adam they're just awesome. They've been really supportive of us from day one. So thank you guys. And Art Tornabene was on that
Yeah.
episode
Well,
that you
for
were
sure.
referring to.
I didn't mention Art because his family. He's
Yeah,
from
yeah, but yeah, he's also just an awesome dude and always
Yeah,
encouraging. So I appreciate really so many people in this community.
totally.
Just really, we got a good bunch here. It really is. So just very grateful for all of you who listen, who even if you don't listen, it just being part of the community is just I'm so I can't find the right word, but like my life has become enriched just becoming more immersed in this community.
Totally.
I used to I've talked about this before, but like I used to just kind of like lurk in the shadows, right? And just kind of like read, just try to like be on Twitter just to get news and information. But once I started to really put myself out there and engage with people and make connections, it's definitely been had a positive impact on my life. So yeah, thanks for bringing that up, Carlos. But yeah, let's before we wrap up, as usual, we are going to do our mental health minute. So Carlos, you want to start us off? What are you doing to maintain your overall wellness right now, whether it's your mental health, physical health, both?
Yeah. So this is more part of the another side of life that I think we don't talk enough, and it's parenting. And as the proud father of a teenager and a 10 years old boy, a teenager girl, um, I have to, and I want to tell everyone out there, man, it's okay to sometimes feel at lost. It's
Mhm.
normal. It's it's completely fine. I mean, I cannot tell you the all the times that I just, oh my god, and now what I do, you know,
Mhm.
and as with everything, you have to regroup, take your time, digest everything, look for the appropriate advices and things like that. As always, you cannot just expect to have the answers just by yourself. It's way too hard job, and no one gave us instructions. And sometimes we come from complicated upbringings,
Mhm.
and that doesn't help at all, because we have our preconceived notions and things that we are bringing with us, and if we want to get better and do it better than maybe our faults, because no one's perfect,
Mhm.
so we have to try to inform ourselves and take our time, but act. I'm these days we've been having situations with our oldest, and it's she's a teenager, and she's in 14 and going into new phases every day. There's a different thing every day.
Mhm.
And there are going to come more of those days. That's part of life, and it's okay if to feel tired some days. Sometimes my wife and I just look at ourselves and think, oh my god, and now what? What are we gonna do now, right? But we try to keep it, yeah, steady. Try to not take decisions emotionally. It's not easy at all, but we only have a chance to raise our kids, and
Mhm.
we have to make the most out of it, as hard as it is. And if anyone has advices to share with me, I'm more than happy to take them.
Well, my friend, you're a veteran at this point. I mean, you're
You'll be
obviously you've been
there.
doing
You'll
some.
be there.
What's that?
You'll be there, man. Don't worry.
Yeah, no, I'm getting there. My daughter is 7 today, and actually just before we went on, you saw Carlos, like we were having some trouble getting her to bed, and too much sugar and a little bit of an attitude. So I know I just was dealing with that a couple minutes ago, so I know exactly what you're talking about. It's not easy. There is no guide, but I think we just that's awesome that you could express that here. And I think just whoever you can lean on for support, I honestly, I've even thought about like doing something like for the dads in this community, just as kind of like a non-baseball thing to just like chat. I know for a while they were doing like meetups, like mental health meetups, and Justin Mason's wife was running them.
Yeah.
But I had considered doing something like just I know there's quite a few dads
Oh, for
within
sure.
this little Twitter community we have. So I think we're in a different place now, like where dads are more involved and really, it's not as much like it was 20, 30 years ago,
Oh, for sure.
and but there's such a learning curve, and no kid is the same, no situation is the same. And like you said, we bring our own stuff from like our own childhood into our parenting. So we got to be aware of that as well. And it's not easy, man. But I think what you're saying though is that the struggles that you have as a parent are completely normal and okay. And I think just normalizing that is important for anybody out here there listening who is also a father or a mom. Okay, so I wanted to talk a little bit about balance. And balance is something that it's a constant struggle, but it's something I strive for in my everyday life. And I actually want to relate this to fantasy baseball as well. So maybe it's a little bit of a stretch, but hang in with me on this one. Like in my life, I try to put myself in a position where I can how do I say it? Like where I can best handle the unforeseen stressors that come my way, and also take advantage of opportunities that come my way. So in order to do that, like if I'm going to be able to handle, because life happens, right? Like you get sick, a loved one gets sick, your kid gets sick, someone passes away. Like there's like so many things that life could throw at you. And in order to be able to handle that stuff, we got to make sure that we are in balance both mentally and physically. I'm talking about it at a broader level. I'm not going to get into like the specifics right now of like what I do, but just like I try to be very intentional about checking in with myself. Okay, are like things out of whack physically for me? Are things out of whack mentally? It's kind of like, life hits you sometimes, and if you are if one part of your life is off balance, it hits you, like it can knock you down for a while, right? And it takes a long time to recover. But if
Right.
you've got those things, those main, like those those core things taken care of and in balance, yeah, you may stumble, you may stagger, but you're not going to get knocked down. You could recover much quicker. So and I kind of now relating it to fantasy baseball, I had a draft recently that I felt really good about. I was really happy with the way it turned out. And the reason I realized that I felt that way was because I stayed in balance throughout the entire draft and made that a point. Like I made sure that I didn't have like no steals after five. Like I wanted to like at least have a foundation in everything at the beginning of a draft, because then it allows me to take advantage of like guys who are falling in the draft and not really feel like I can't take them because maybe I need a stolen base guy. No, I've already got that taken care of.
Right.
So like just keeping myself in a position where I have leverage and don't have to make like a panic pick, because I'm like desperate for something. I think it may be funny like to think about it that way, but I think it almost can be like an analogy for life. Like keep yourself in balance throughout on a daily basis, and the challenges of life are not as difficult to deal with, and also it allows you to take advantage of the things that may come your way. So that was more of a mental health monologue as opposed to a mental health minute, but I hope does that make sense, Carlos, what I was talking about?
Totally, man. Totally. I completely agree with it.
So yeah, let that be the key word for today is balance.
Balance. I love
But
it.
all right, so that's all I got today. Anything else, Carlos? Any other parting words before we end this episode?
No, just take care, guys, and I hope you can keep joining us for the rest of the trip.
All right. All right, so I think we have the Braves episode coming up. We've got someone by the name of Justin Toscano, who does some great work covering the Braves. So we are gonna hopefully that will be our next episode. So until then, for Carlos, for Mike, for me, thank you for listening to the Fantasy Baseball Beat.